Still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is Ask Gibbo. Good evening, John.
How are you, my friend?
All good, mate. All good. Good to see you. And still smiling. 9 out of 9. Alexander Isak still on fire. And Newcastle United cemented in 4th place at the moment, above some great names such as Man City and Chelsea, and bearing down on Nottingham Forest and Liverpool for a charge at the title. John, I'm the one who's got a pound on the treble. It's still looking good.
You did. I remember that at the beginning of the season, and we had a good chortle about it. But honestly, I hope you win your bet, pal. I hope you win your bet.
Listen, there's plenty of questions in already, John. Just want to get your views just on those games that we've had, and then we'll come straight to the questions. Obviously, since we last spoke, we've had another 2 wins, mate. It's great, isn't it, when we say that? What did you make of those 2 games? One, of course, in the FA Cup, sees Newcastle get into the 4th round at the first time of asking, and get Birmingham away in the draw. And then last night, of course, another wonderful win against Wolves, an improving Wolves, it has to be said, who've changed their manager over recent months, over recent weeks. And another 3 points in the bag. So give us your take on those 2 games, John.
Yeah, well, I mean, overall, 9 wins on the bounce, 26 goals scored, and only 3 conceded. We're so much a front foot side, Steve, in a high octane way of playing that, and goals are what entertain people. I mean, the entertainers were created by that, and these lads are doing a very good job of being similar. But we've only conceded 3 in those 9 games, and that is superb. We've gone up from 12th to 4th. We're on the cusp of a cup final, and we're still in the FA Cup. I mean, to be truthful, against Bromley, I was never in any real doubt. We knew there would be huge amount of changes. There were 9. And they went 1 up, but they went 1 up early in the game, and I expected it to change. In the moment, I felt that we brought on the big hitters at half time in Bruno and Gordon. It completely changed the thing. We dominated the ball, and in the end, we won comfortable. Another 3 goals, which is what we do. And then we go into last night, and we've got everybody back, because the people that were missing were Shaw with an illness, and Harvey Barnes for a month, of course. But we looked what we are, which is a very, very good side. And you sit comfortable now. I used to sit, even when we were winning, on the edge of my chair, sort of biting my fingernails, thinking, let's have the final whistle. And it isn't like that anymore. It was a very astute performance. I mean, Isak is just unbelievable. I mean, he had 25 goals last season. He's got 17 already this. 2 goals last night plus an assist. He scored in all the last 8 matches. And if you look at his overall record, Steve, 90 appearances, that includes some early doors as a sub, 90 appearances and 52 goals. we've got a number 9 legend amongst us and playing for us right now. I don't care he wears a number 14 shirt. He's a number 9 legend, because that's the phrase that was coined way back when centre forwards, whichever one it was, always wore 9 at a match. And I wouldn't change him for the world. I wouldn't change him for anybody. Haaland, you can take anybody. I wouldn't change him because he's all around player. He's a nightmare to mark. He drops deep. He goes wide. He gets right up into the box, into the pockets, looking for tap-ins as well as wonder finishes. He is a complete player, and he is the guy who is centre stage and in the spotlight. But it's wrong to call the other the chorus line. I said the other day in print, I said, the star and then the chorus line's terrific. And then I suddenly thought, hey, I'm going to try to rephrase that, because how dare I call Tonali and Gordon chorus line? I mean, they are the business. They are top performers. And you look at the balance of the side now. You look at the midfield. What a difference since Tonali went centre and played number 6, and that freed up Bruno to go forward. Bruno's looked twice a player he was. He was getting a bit stagnated when he was playing in a 6 and a bit frustrated. And Tonali is just running the show. I mean, he's worth 52 million of anybody's money. And we didn't know when he went on his holidays for 10 months. We didn't know how good this guy was. We suspected it, but we know now. And it's a delight to see, and long may it continue. And I honestly believe, Steve, it will. My only concern is, have we, thinking of where we're going to finish in the league, what we're going to do in the 2 cups, etc., etc. My only slight concern is that I think we're a bit fragile on strength and depth. I mean, can you imagine at this moment, if we got injuries? It's all right getting injuries to Harvey Barnes and illness to Shaw and injury to Pope, because we've got people in that position and we can cope. But if we got injury to Isak, or injury to Tonali, or injury to Bruno, it would be a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, you've just got to hope that we'll get a little bit of luck. We've had a little bit of that over the last 9 games. There's been, goals, shots on target that would have gone in, which didn't go in, and VAR decisions going in our favour. We're not riding our luck. We're just getting the luck that deserted us a lot last season, and hopefully we're getting the same with the injuries, because as you say, we are an Alexander Isak injury away from a major problem. So it'll be interesting to see. Lots of questions coming in. We'll try and get through as many as we can. Tom simply says, if he stays fit, I guess, how many goals do you think Isak can score from now to the end of the season? I mean, in current form, John, I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit 30.
I mean, it's in current form. You think he scored 25 last season, and we thought, this is incredible. We've never had a striker like this since Big Al, and before that, Supermac. We don't have goal scorers in the mid or late 20s. We haven't had that for Youngs. He's got 17 already. He's going to top 25 this season, and I thought that would be the pinnacle of him scoring. He'd always score a lot. And when you think about it, Steve, he started slowly this year.
He did.
He scored the winner against Spurs, which was a tap in, but he went 4, 5, 6 games early on. That was his only goal. And now he's got his fitness and his confidence and everything up, and he's looking a world beater. And wouldn't it be fabulous to see him at 30? I mean, Newcastle United with a 30-goal centre forward, do me a favour. Those days have well gone. Well, perhaps I haven't. Look at his overall record. He's no flash in the pan. A lot of players have a good single season, but they can't do it season after season after season. This guy's got 52 goals in 90 appearances.
Incredible.
I mean, that's quality by anybody's standards, isn't it? And he's not playing in a championship winning side, although he's playing in a good side. So, that is some return, and confidence is soaring from. And he's got so many different ways, Steve, of making goals. And that is what he must be a nightmare for a centre half, because he comes short, he drops deep. the centre half, does he go with him or does he pass him on to somebody? Is it zonal marking? Then he'll pop up on the left wing. Then he'll pop up on the right wing. He'll make a late run into the box. And then the next 2 seconds, he's already in the box inside the 6-yard box doing a tap in. I mean, how on earth do you mark this fella without tying him down like Houdini and throwing him in the timeline?
Yeah, amazing to see him come. Would you give him the number 9 shirt, do you think, next season, John, if Callum Wilson departs?
I would love to, because I'm old-fashioned and we have a club of a number 9 legends, and I know that was formed when, in the old days, whenever anybody played centre forward in the team, game by game, he was given the 9 shirt, and it doesn't mean that anymore. It's really centre forward legends. The only problem there is I wouldn't upset him, Steve.
Yeah,
and he has always worn 14, wherever he's played. Now, I would say I want you to have 9 shirt, because this is a club of number 9 legends, and you deserve to wear that shirt and be one of the legends, which you already are. But if he says to me, I want to wear 14 because I always have, and it's a lucky number for me, and I would say, off you go, son. You keep the shirt. As long as you keep scoring goals, you can have 96 on the back if you want. But for sentimental reasons, I would like to see him have the 9 shirt, yeah.
yeah.
It's a long time. It's a long time since I've seen the 9 shirt, because it's a long time since I've seen Callum Wilson.
Yeah, but hopefully he's on the mend. He's back on grass, and ideally for us, if we can get another, say, 10 games out of Wilson between now and the end of the season, that could be the difference between finishing in a Champions League place or even higher. So I haven't given up on seeing Callum Wilson just yet. Darren says, hi, Steve and John. This is a serious question. We've got to go to Liverpool and to Manchester City in February. Does John think that we can go and get 6 points and go on to win the league? I mean, they're all talking about Forest, John, being, in and around it. They're comparing them to Leicester when Leicester won the league. Newcastle's in the title race. Even Big Al last night on Match of the Day was asked the question, and he said, yes, we are.
I think he got caught out and there was no way he was going to win on a Geordie parade, that's for certain. And I've got to be realistic here as far as the title's concerned. I think it's a huge ask for a couple of reasons. Everybody's saying Liverpool are tapering off, and of course we've gone above Chelsea because they have tapered off. I think Nottingham Forest are more than catchable, because they haven't played a lot of good sides yet, apart from Liverpool twice, and they've got 2 good results against them. But the way they play, I mean, against Liverpool, they got battered for 90 minutes and were magnificent in the way they defended against them. But you can't win the title by keep doing that, and that is the way they play. But, Liverpool are tapering off. It must be a wonderful way to taper off when you've played 20-odd games and you've only lost 1. And they've only lost 1. They're 9 points ahead with a game in hand of us. I mean, I'm still believing, but Al's taken that flight to Fantasy Island, I think, a little bit. It's an awful lot to catch up. And if we could play our regular side that played the other night, and for the rest of the season, fully fit and guaranteed, I would say we've got a real chance. But you just said it earlier, we're 1 game away from trouble. If Isak got a knock, or if Tonali got a knock, because who plays the 6 as well as Tonali with his vision and his athleticism and getting around the ball? I mean, he should be in Los Angeles. He puts out fires all the time. I mean, he's just going around putting out fires all over the pitch whenever it happened. He is colossal. And while Isak rightly gets the headlines and the glory and is the blue-eyed boy because he scores all the goals, what Bruno's contributing, what Tonali's contributing, what Gordon's contributing is incredible. But you can go to the other end of the scale, Steve. What's been contributed by Dubravka in Byrne, in Murphy, who we've seen as bit players in the past, they're playing out their skin, which is a wonderful thing to see.
Alan, you're right. Top sides have got European matches coming up, except Forest and us. And Gary says we've got an outsider's chance, and that's a lot better than we had 5 weeks ago. As Eddie says, take each game on its own, play to our strengths, and let's see where we are.
That's right, Gary. That is absolutely spot on, and that's how I see it. We have an outsider's chance. But it's incredible, isn't it? If you think back, Steve, It's only, Gary saying, about 5 weeks ago,
5 weeks
perhaps a bit more.
since
We
we
were
lost against
12th,
Brentford.
buried 12th in the middle of the table, and some people were going on social media and asking if Eddie Howe's job was safe.
Yep.
Now we're sitting here tonight and we're asking if we're going to win the title. I mean, can you imagine the change from then to here? It was silly to ask about Eddie's job because really, I mean, it's an insult to the man. But winning the title is a real outside bet because you've only got to get a couple of draws in Liverpool win, and it's a problem. But I tell you what, if we get in the Champions League and win the League Cup, I'll be more than happy, Stephen. That'll do for me. I'm not too greedy. That if we do that this season, if we win the title, I'd be ecstatic. Goodness gracious. Even me didn't see we last win the title because it was 1927. But
Yep.
but if we make the Champions League and win the League Cup, wouldn't that be fabulous?
Yeah, a cup double's possible. You just never know. I did say at the start of the season, if Newcastle's going to win a trophy and break that trophy duck, it would be typical of Newcastle to go and win one, not just one, go and win two. So you never know. We'll wait and see. Like we said, you've got to keep your feet on the ground, but just enjoy it. And Barry's just said, I mean, that's what I said a few weeks back. Just enjoy the journey. It's a hell of a lot better than having relegation battles.
Absolutely, Barry.
You know,
Absolutely.
the positive thing is if Newcastle finish in a European spot, the likelihood is that the likes of it makes the idea of getting Isak to sign a new contract and keeping those players such as Bruno and Tonali, it makes it so much easier because that's the league they want to play in the Champions League. So great stuff. Lots of questions.
If we win the Champions League and the League Cup, do you think anybody's going to be knocking on the door in the summer and saying, "I want out of here, get me out of here"?
No, definitely not.
No chance. No chance.
Definitely not. Stephen Kennedy, good evening. He says, question for John. After Tonali's first few games, before his suspension, did you see or think there was such an amazing player in there? I reckon he is the difference this year.
That is a good question, Stephen, and I think you're absolutely right. He had a sensational debut against Aston Villa. I think he scored within about something like 6 minutes of his debut starting. We beat Villa 5, and this was the season that qualified for the Champions League. So what a result that was. But he tapered off after that. He wasn't playing in his correct position, what we know is his correct position now, which is 6. He was more advanced. And I felt at that stage, Steve, it was still bothering him that he'd had to leave AC Milan. That was no slight on us whatsoever, but this was his boyhood club. This was the club of his dreams. He'd got a transfer there. He'd become a superstar there. All the fans absolutely adored him there. And then all of a sudden he had to go for financial reasons. They couldn't turn down the 52 million that Newcastle offered, and he had to go. Naturally, I mean, Newcastle, he probably had to look it up on the map to know where we were, bless him. I mean, he probably only knew where London was. And I think that he struggled then with the language, with a new culture, with guys that hadn't played with him, didn't know his style. And I think it was all a struggle. And he had the addiction at the time, which was a problem. He's got rid of all that. He's absolutely risen to the bait and the challenge. He speaks English fine now. He adores his teammates. He loves the fans because they stuck with him and sung his name while he was suspended. And he's come out the other end. And by Jove, does he look a player? Does he look a player? And as I say, Isak's bound to get the headlines, but let nobody underestimate the difference Tonali's made. It's not just a coincidence that Tonali playing 6. Newcastle have gone on this run simultaneously with that positional switch. That hasn't happened by an accident. And by the way, let's give Bruno some credit. That's freed up Bruno to play better, surging forward and looking the quality player that got him a cult figure at Newcastle when he first arrived.
Yep, Graham says we're now safe. 38 points. Well done, Graham. Bringing us back to reality. All in all, we were slightly off on our passing last night, but the win without being 10 out of 10 shows collectively in winning, we are moving upwards as a team, don't you think, guys? I mean, it's all about perspective. I think, Yvonne, I get where you're coming from. I think Wolves just played well in fits and starts. You've got to bear in mind that they've got a new manager in there, coming off the back of a decent result as well. I genuinely think Wolves, they were in the game last night. They hit the post. They missed some pretty, clear one-on-one chances. Obviously had that goal disallowed, and rightly so. But, I don't think we were ever in danger of being beaten, Yvonne. But I think you've got to give credit to Wolves for the effort that they put in. They didn't take the foot off the gas. They pressurised us. And Eddie Howe, in his press conference at the end of the game, more or less said we had to win in a different way, and we did. And that was credit to Wolves, because they were in the game last night. A few weeks ago, they probably wouldn't have been.
But I mean, that's the way football is. However good a side you are, when you were Manchester City in their pomp, when they did the treble a couple of years back, when you remember Manchester United under Ferguson and Arsenal under Wenger, you can't play top of the range football for an hour and a half every game for 38 games plus all your cup ties. That is a physical impossibility. There's going to be moments in games where the opposition are going to do something for a quarter of an hour spell, for a 20-minute spell. But the difference between us and Wolves, even the revitalised Wolves under a new manager, the difference is when we have our 20 minutes, we'll blow teams away. When they have their 20 minutes, they miss goals because they don't score goals. And why don't they score goals? It isn't luck. They haven't got finishes of the capability of Isak. And so it's not a surprise that things turn out the way it is. And by the way, in those 9 wins, we've scored 26 goals, and there's not been a single match when we've scored less than 2. We've scored 2 or more every single game in those 9. So we're doing a lot of things right, mate. And we've only let 3 in. There's another thing we're doing right.
Yeah, it's a fantastic time to be a Newcastle fan. And you can hear the positivity in John and everybody who's been on the platform this week. Rob Maltman, our designer, good evening. He says, talking of number 9s, who is your all-time favourite, lads? Mine is Andy Cole. I think he's the most underappreciated player in the Premier League's history. Number 9s at Newcastle, we've seen a lot over the years. John's seen more than me. I've got to say Big Al, Rob, for me, because, he is the record holder. He's the man that beat Jackie Milburn's record. And had it not been for 2 bad injuries, he would have been probably over 300 goals in a black and white shirt. I've got to say Big Al. I get where you're coming from with Andy Cole. Andy Cole was just a flash of brilliance in such a short period of the club's history. He established us back in the Premier League. And I can see why you would say Andy Cole, because he was electric. And I mean, he was the man, of course, who beat Hughie Gallagher's record, which still stands today, And that noise in St James's Park when he did that, I think it was against Aston Villa, was absolutely fantastic. I just remember that day, and the noise was electric. The other one's a surprise, and it's Mickey Quinn, because it was an amazing day against Leeds United. People boycotting the game, a lovely red hot day, of course, in the 2nd division, as it was called now, the Championship. But to see Mickey Quinn, who, as the song went, was fat and round and worth £1 million, Mickey Quinn, scored 4 wonderful goals past Leeds, and almost got us back to the 1st division via automatic promotion. We fell short, and of course the rest of history, got beat off Sunderland in the playoffs. But that season by Mickey Quinn was something else. John, what about you? Yeah. Your number 9s. You can go back a bit further than me.
I do, but overall I would go with Big Al, quite simply because he's a record taker, and he was so Andy, he scored goals everywhere. He won the Premier League title with Blackburn. He scored a pile for England. He was so reliable, it was untrue. So he's got to be first for me. The Andy Cole thing is purely on that one season when he was absolutely sensational and scored, 41 or something, and it was a one-season wonder. But he was not a one-season wonder, because if we look at his goal-scoring record at Manchester United, it was phenomenal. So straight away I go for Big Al. And my dear mate, Supermac, I've got to put him in there because not only was he a wonderful goal scorer, but he had something that Big Al didn't have, and that was pace. He absolutely got your bum off seat because he took off like a shot out of a gun. And his hair was flowing behind him and his legs were going like pistons. And you thought, hey, is this the epitome of excitement? And at the end of it, he usually tried to rip the net off the back of the goal with the force of the shot. But I would make Alma number one, but I loved um, Supermac. And as a schoolboy, as a kid, in little grey flannel shorts and the school cap instead of the one I've got on now, War Jackie was the first of my heroes. And he was quick as well. And he had a swagger. He didn't have the Supermac swagger because Supermac knew how good he was and carried an arrogance with him, which was attractive. Jackie Milburn was bemused by the fact that he was so good and other people thought he was so good. And he was embarrassed and he coloured up when told face to face how good he was. Big Al just agreed with you that he was that good. So there was a difference, but they are the standout guys.
Yeah, somebody asking there, George asking whatever happened to Paul Goddard. I mean, I know he's
Good
still.
question. I'm not
Yeah,
certain what he's doing.
I've just Googled it, George, and I can't find anything out. I'll ask about mate, and maybe he's bring that back to the table on one of the shows.
He went several games scoring goals regularly. You know how
He
we've
did
just
7.
had this. Yeah, we
Six.
just had,
Six was it 6 or 7?
yeah, in a poor side. In a
Yeah.
poor side. Isak's done the 8 in a good side. It's still quite an incredible record, and it's not over yet. But yes, Goddard did well as well, Paul, certainly.
Sarge, yeah, good player in a poor team. We've had a few of those kind of situations. Jopadoni says Shearer because he was at the tune as he had an opportunity. Then Andrew Cole and then Jackie. And here yes, he does like to be called Andrew Cole. Ian says Andy Cole going to Man United was devastating. What did Mark say as well? It's harder to name the worst striker because there's tons. Yeah, we've done that a few times. Alan Little, forgive us if I don't sing that song that you've stuck in the chat. And George says my top 5: Shearer, Cole, Supermac, Ferdinand, and Mickey Quinn. But yeah, we've had so many great number 9s over the years, and yeah, it's so difficult to pick. I'd just go for the ones that I actually physically saw, and of course, I could reel off the likes of Les Ferdinand, who was brilliant. Of course, Andrew Cole was great as well.
I tell you what, Quinny's such a lovely lad, and he did a terrific job for us here. But Quinny will be bursting out of his shirt to be mentioned in the same breath as people like Alan Shearer and Les Ferdinand and Andy Cole, bless them, because I mean they are England internationals and top goal scorers. Mickey Quinn scored a pile of goals, but it was second division for us, and he scored them at Coventry, and was desperately hurt when his hero Kevin Keegan decided that he wasn't going to lead our line anymore. I love Quinny to death, and he scored goals for fun, but he was the sort of centre forward that would have a fag on the back post, waiting for the ball to come to him. When he did, he stuck it in the net and then trundled back to the halfway line. Lovely lad, scored a pile of goals in very, very good company tonight. He'll be asking for a recording of this so he can keep it, Steve.
He's one of those Newcastle players who does watch the show. So yeah, big shout out to Quinny. Of course, if you're going to the Entertainers a week tomorrow at the Tyne Theatre, then Quinny is going to be part of that night. So still a few tickets left for that. Not many though. So get yourself onto the Tyne Theatre website to get them. No mentions of Peter With, says Rob. Again, it was before my time. Obviously, I know Peter With again didn't really play at Newcastle at the. In a great team, but I know he's still held in high regard amongst fans who saw him play.
He played in a second division side that wasn't a good side. He had a wonderful partnership up front, Little and Large, which was Peter With and Alan Shoulder, who joined us and still had coal dust on his face. He'd just come up from the pit at Blythe and signed for Newcastle and played on the Saturday. And he scored a pile of goals for us. He wasn't a number 9, of course. He was He was built more like a jockey than a footballer, size-wise. But what a good finisher! And Peter With was a good centre forward who won the European Cup and won the First Division title with other sides. Did well for us for a couple of seasons, but is short of the class we're talking about. But a good lad. And I went out for a few bevies with him. A good lad as well was Peter.
Yeah, keep your questions coming in. Mark Byers, again, I'll not be reading that comment out, but I'm surprised you're not in the UK, Mark. Everybody else from America seems to be here. Anyway, halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Contact them at their website, skipsandbins.com, or email www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk. Email them info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. Travel and Tourism Award winners 2024. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges, all excursions included. Find them at their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. Their website is media-arts.co.uk. And we're also available as a podcast. You can find us on Sports Social, Podcast Network, iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to help the channel, then hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up that likes each video, and click share to share to your social media. Some Newcastle United events coming up. An evening with the entertainers, 24th of January 2025. Box office number is 0191 243 1171. Or website, Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. An evening with Lee Clark takes place on the 31st of January at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are available on Voucher or from newcastlelegends.com. An afternoon with Celeste Ferdinand takes place on the 6th of April 2025, 12 p.m. till 4 p.m, and that's at the O2 City Hall in Newcastle. Tickets from www.ticketmaster.co.uk or from Voucher. And did you get a book voucher for Christmas? Then why not buy The Entertainers, 1992 to 1997, Kevin Keegan's Legacy by Will Scott. Priced $18.99. Also available from newcastlelegends.com. Okay, welcome back to Ask Gibbo. Plenty of questions flying in tonight, and it's always difficult because we'll have to make sure we try and get through as many of them as possible and not miss out before we get to looking ahead to the game at the weekend. Tom Dixon says, John, would you be happy to see Miggy Almiron leave? And there was another question about Miggy Almiron, which was from Barry Hogan. John, can you confirm that the rumours that Miggy is away for 10 million? I mean, Atlanta seem to have the bit between their teeth this time. They seem to have come back with a fairly decent offer. Miggy, I've seen him on some of the footage after the match, looked a little bit sad, a little bit despondent. It's always difficult when you're reading stuff in. Everybody else is, whooping and cheering as they're going in the dressing room. And it did, when you hear these stories going, you think, oh, is there a bit of truth in that now? But it looks fairly certain. Again, rumours flying around about Jose Mourinho bidding for Lloyd Kelly, which is another one, and some lesser confirmed rumours about potentially Sean Longstaff as well. Again, doing the rounds. John, is there anything you can tell us? Anything you're hearing about those 3 players?
Yeah. I think Miggy Almiron, going back to where he came from, is a very, very good chance of that happening. They're offering about 10 mil. He knows he was loved there, adored there, so that makes it easier for him. he would be sad to leave Newcastle after 6 years. Of course he would, but he would go somewhere where which would be much more attractive to him than going to Saudi or whatever. He's going to a club where he's loved. They do want him. We do want to sell. And I think that will happen. I don't think Mourinho getting Kelly will happen simply because it is true that they have been in touch and they did talk figures, but honestly, it was like coppers in your pocket. It was silly nonsense, no money whatsoever. Newcastle would do a deal similar in some ways to what they did for Minter, where the guys hardly had time to unpack his socks and his undies before he's away again. They would do a deal if they made the right offer. They won't make the right offer, is my feeling, because they're not in it for that amount of money. They're in it for the PR back home. We're trying to get a Premier League player out of Newcastle United, who are doing so well at the moment. But one gentleman asked there, would I be pleased to see Miggy go? If I had to answer that with one word, the word would be yes. I'm totally grateful for what he's done for us. In the bad old days, he was a bit of a shining light because he scampered up and down that right wing and he had a smile on his face all the time. Even if he missed a goal, he smiled. And he quite often missed a goal. But he smiled and he did us proud for a long while. He's well past his sell-by date, both age-wise and what he can bring to this team. To be truthful, we've just advanced far too far for Miggy, and he is slightly tapered with age, etc. And if I was Miggy, you look now and you think that, I used to be a star on this side, and now Jacob Murphy's overtaken me, and quite rightly overtaken me. So what's my future here? I think he would go with my blessing. I think he ought to go. I think it's the right time. And I'll put an interesting question to you. And I don't want to be harsh on Miggy because Miggy's been great for us. But have you ever seen an outside right with such a poor right foot?
Yeah,
He's
interesting
all
stuff.
left-footed. He's all left-footed. If the ball's on his right foot, he's not certain what to do apart from try to get it on his left. No, I think the moment has come to go with our grateful thanks and not with any sort of smug remarks, with our grateful thanks, but he's well past his sell-by date. How many Premier League games has he started this season? The answer is one. It's time.
If we get 10 million for Miggy and he goes to a club that love him, then I say let's give him the beautiful send-off he deserves, says Denise. And Gary says, I hope Miggy gets the chance to say goodbye to the fans if he leaves. He's been a good servant to the club, a well-liked character to his teammates and to the fan base. And Ian says the same. Miggy has been a good servant, came to us when we were poor, always gave his all, got us to the Champions League. Thank you, Miguel. And Tupa Joy says, brilliant service. And good luck, Miggy. So let's see whether it does happen, because we've been here before with Miggy in transfer windows and he still ended up a Newcastle player. He'll only go on Newcastle's terms. I think that's for sure. And terms that suit him.
The difference this time, Stevie, is that we were happy to let him go to Saudi in the last window, but he didn't want to go. He would go to Atlanta again because he had wonderful times there. And it looks as if they'll give 10 million, and Newcastle know that that's as much as they'll get from every transfer window that goes, because of his age and his lack of starting at Newcastle, his price goes down. So 10 million is as good as it's going to get from Newcastle United's point of view. They realise that. And this club is as good as it's going to get from Miggy's point of view for going to his next adventure and going back their ways adored. And as all the guys were saying on there, the guys and the girls, and I said before that as well, of course he goes with all our thank yous, because he's been 6 years here. And in the days when we were not as good as awful, he stood out as a shining light. And yes, times have passed him by now. That's what happens when you building a side. I mean, if you look at the entertainers at the start, if we hadn't had people like Killer Kilcline, the entertainers wouldn't have took off. But Killer Kilcline was not going to be the centre half when we finished runners up in the Premier League. It's called progress.
Yeah, Mark Byers says, to be fair, Miggy, he's never had a run at 10 for us, was never a right winger. Tom Dixon says, Miggy will be a miss, but he deserves a good farewell. Even give him a run out for one last time. No room for sentimentality in teams, I'm afraid, Tom. I don't think that'll happen. I think Miggy will always be remembered fondly, but sadly, the evolution of the team means the club has simply outgrown him, which is what John's just said. He's never ducked or shirked or gone missing in a Newcastle shirt. And Joppa Doney says, Miggy's brilliant, best smile on the pitch, scored so many goals, should have been played on the left when he was here, not on the right. He only really had one foot. And Ian says, does that 10 million mean we can spend 50 million? Oh, God, ask Kieran Maguire and Keith Patterson. That's what I would say. And Tubo Joy says, I'm having a nice cuppa of me, NUFC Matters mug. Yes, they're nice mugs there, mate. I'll definitely say that. That's for certain. The question that I've lost there was about Osula. Do you think Osula will come good this season, or do you think Osula will progress nicely for next season? That was a hell of a goal he scored, albeit against Bromley.
Yeah, both those things, Steve. I think Osula is one for the future. I think his goal was sensational. It was against Bromley, who laid off him when he got the ball. They're not going to be saying after you, Claude, when you play in the Premier League, they're going to be rattling your cage. And so it is much more difficult. It was a great goal against Bromley, and I don't want to be critical, but the question has been asked, and we want honesty. If you looked at his rest of the game against Bromley, it was well short, he's still learning. He's a young boy. He's so keen. He's got one massive advantage, and that is he's blisteringly fast, which means he can hound down people. But when we scored the equaliser, if you remember, he was throwing the keeper. Now, you just slot that in the back of the net. He actually stumbled into the keeper. The ball was recycled, and we got the equaliser. Let's put it another way. If Isak was injured for 6 games, Osula came in for the 6 games now, say next week, would you think would make the Champions League? No. He's not ready yet. If he comes good, and I'm hopeful he'll come good, and there's stuff to work on, and there's not 2 better coaches than Mad Dog and Eddie to make him come good. If he'll come good, it'll not be this season. He might be useful off the bench, but he's raw. He's 21. Lewis Miley is 18. Lewis Miley is further down the road to being a Premier League player than Osula is.
Okay, simple that. Miggy was the one bright spark under Rafa before he was injured and before Kennedy. Remember him, the Brazilian? There was something special in him. His time has come, but nobody can say he hasn't given his all. Yvonne says Osula, or Osula, whatever you want to call him, did lots of step overs before his goal and won't have the same time on the ball against top defenders. And Denise says he's a big lump and makes defenders work and does have a goal threat, but he still needs work. He might be a right winger. Eddie will find a place for him. That makes make no bones about it. Dave says, Gibbo, when you're making a sandwich, do you butter both sides?
At the moment, I think I must be doing that because there's so much good going on that yes, I take no chances, wallow in it.
I was waiting for Marjorie to tip in and say he doesn't make a sandwich. I'd do it.
Well, I do. That's absolutely right. You've got it right there. That's what I wondered. I was thinking, is there butter on my sandwiches or not? I can't quite remember because I don't make them. Yeah, right, mate. Yeah, there's always a question which I love. There's always a question which is so far left side that you're thinking, how the heck to answer this? I know my opinion on Miggy and Osula and who's the great centre forwards, but the opinion on which side my bread should be buttered, I'm not quite certain of it.
I'll ask Margie next time I see her. Phil says, John, am I dreaming or making this up? Did I sit in the New East Stand in 1973-74 to see a testimonial featuring Supermac, but in which Jackie Milburn made a player appearance because I can't find it online?
Good God. I tell you what, that is some question, Phil. And I think after the show, both Wraithy and myself will be diving in the record books because featuring Supermac, in which, no, Supermac never played alongside Jackie. that is the one part of it, which is, I think, Phil, that you have been dreaming. But of course, recently we've all been dreaming. I mean, when you go to Manchester United, Spurs, and Arsenal and win away from home, we're all dreaming, aren't we? I think you've been dreaming there, because what if you could have got them two in that pomp playing in the same side, Supermac and Milburn, you would have blistered sides. I don't think that even happened in a testy.
All
So
right.
I would say no.
Okay. Isak and Bruno influences will pay dividends on Osula and Miley. Yeah, training with those players, Graham, is definitely going to help any young player. Lewis Miley's a future superstar with a tune. Hopefully, he won't be sacrificed for this PSR nonsense. No, I genuinely think it'll be somebody like, like a Sean Longstaff. And Sean's been another good servant for the club. If Newcastle decide to cash in and he gets an opportunity to go and play regular football somewhere else, maybe that's what will happen. Anyone who's seen the interview, Denise sent me it from the Canadian guys coming over with Matty Longstaff and talking about, the two brothers playing. Fantastic interview that. And yeah, I think, Sean will go with our blessing. I've got a feeling that Sean would like to stay at the end of the season, though, because he'd love to be here when we win that trophy. Two for Joy says he misses the football. Pink, yes, I think we all do. Jeff's asked this question a couple of times, so I keep missing out. I keep missing it out. So apologies, Jeff, but we've got there in the end. Gibbo, what do you think of the explosion of new kits in a variety of new colours with wedgie shorts? I think he's referring to the fact that Joe Linton seems to be like wearing his shorts that tight. He just looks like he's going to explode out of his kit like the Incredible Hulk. But
Well,
the
it
new
does,
kits are
doesn't it?
nice. Yeah.
I mean, it does. I noticed. It's funny that should be mentioned by Jeff, because I looked just the last Wolves last night. I looked at that and I thought, is Joe Linton the Incredible Hulk? I was waiting for him going green, because these shorts are getting smaller and smaller by the game. Everybody's gone back to the days of the baggy shorts, which is Jackie Milburn. There was a guy in my time you will not have heard of, I would think, Steve, called Albert Quicksall, that played for Man U, and I think it was Sheffield Wednesday. In the days when Joe Harvey and everybody was wearing baggy shorts that were so baggy they went on for an eternity, and they wafted beneath his knees, this guy went on with a pair of budgie smugglers on and played in the games. Albert Quicksall, he was known for his small shirts, and with Joe these days, he's actually either exploding into the Incredible Hulk physically, which he is anyway, or somebody's given shorts that were meant for Tony Green. He's 3'6", and when he puts them on, he's bursting. But if they go on like this, it's going to get obscene. The shorts are going to get smaller, and he's going to get bigger, and he's going to get a finger on his shoulder, and it's going to be the coppers taking them off in the van for obscenity. It's incredible. But I mean, these days, the whole business of football, shirts, is so different, isn't it? You've got a home kit, an away kit, another kit, a fourth kit, so that everybody buys them and everybody wants to be seeing the latest things. In the old days, Jackie Milburn and that, when I was a Ben, Newcastle played Sunderland in red and white stripes against black and white stripes with black shorts. I mean, if you're colourblind, you couldn't see who's playing. You didn't know who's passing to who, sort of thing. And sometimes the way some of the players passed the ball, they were colourblind. But it's very different times. It's very different times. But it's funny that should come up about Joe, because when he walked out last night with the team in the line-up to do the handshakes and everything, I thought, has he forgot to put his shorts on? Has he just come out in his kecks? They were the tightest since, as I say, Albert Quicksall. And it'll be interesting to see if we hear in some of the replies from some of the fans, which we can mention next week, if anybody remembers Albert Quicksall, like I do. Be interesting, and I would like to find out who remembers Albert Quicksall.
I'm sure one or two in the chat certainly will. Some of our female viewers seem to be getting very carried away with Joe Linton's shorts. Mark Bayer says Joe Linton's shorts are so tight he'll have someone's eye out if he scores and gets excited. And Denise and Yvonne both seem to be having a bit of a love-in with these shorts. And Ben Holloway, good evening. He says, one of the Bromley defenders referred to Joe Linton as Thanos, which is, of course, a superhero character, I think, in one of those films. And, he certainly has that kind of look about him. Lots of reference to Joe Linton's legs. We're not going to lower ourselves to that kind of show on here, I'm afraid. And Denise is now moving on to Murphy anyway. Murphy's shorts are shorter as well. Any more questions in the chat before we start looking ahead to the game? Any idea when Wilson will be back, just in case Isak gets injured? He's back on grass, Stephen. He is back on grass. Eddie Howe confirmed that in the press conference last week. Hopefully, one of the journos tomorrow morning will ask, is Wilson any closer? Because it is an important question. We know Barnes is out.
Yeah, it's February before he's due to come back. But, when I hear on grass, bless him, because what a good player he is when he plays. That's a big danger when he goes on grass.
Yeah.
Because that's when things happen. And I'm talking about in training. Bless him. He now doesn't just get injured in games. He gets injured in training. The minute he sees the green grass, he trips over.
You'll get the winner in the final, John.
Eh?
You'll get the winner in the final.
Oh, I tell you what, he'll make himself available for the final. Can you imagine? That'll be another question for the future. Who played for Newcastle United in a cup final late in the season, and it was his first appearance in the side?
And Mark Byers obviously loves my poetry when I stick it up online every now and then, and he's come up with one with his own. Quick Soul from Foxhall drove a Vauxhall and scored. We'll leave it there. Referee for Saturday lunchtime was Stuart Atwell, and on VAR Peter Banks. Thank you, Tom. And one more question before we look ahead to that. Let's make it a good one. How good can this Toon side be, says Alan Little? Record equaling and no doubt beating it on Saturday. The records keep falling. Eddie's been asked about the records. They're starting to mount up, and not just this season, but since Eddie took over, he's knocked a few of Kevin's records, flying, and he looks set to do it again as well. If he can get past these wins, especially beating Bournemouth and then beating Southampton, I think it's a club equaling record for wins in the Premier League, certainly. But it's amazing. How good can this side be, is the question, though?
This side can be as good as any that we've had of recent times. The problem we've got is it's this side, i.e. this 11. If we get injuries, and every side gets injuries, and I've said it a few times tonight, if we get injuries to Isak, Bruno, Tonali or Gordon, it changes. The whole picture changes because our backup there is not good enough. If we get in the Champions League, or should I say when we get in the Champions League for next season, we've got to strengthen the squad as much as the team in the summer, because that is what stands you apart from doing the ultimate. It's no longer 11-man game. It used to be in the old days of Jackie Milburn, that when there was no subs, it was an 11-man game. So if you had a squad of 13 or 14 with a cover keeper, that was you for the season. Those days have long gone. And this team, with the emphasis on team rather than squad, is quite mind-blowing and is as good, I believe, or potentially as good as the Entertainers side. But it hasn't got quite the strength and depth, and we've just got to pray we get an even break on the injuries. Because if we do, I'm not certain when we've got a tricky February coming up. Off the top of my head, we'll play Arsenal here to go to the Cup final. I think we'll play Man City, Nottingham Forest, and Liverpool, all in February. That's going to tell us an awful lot, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly will be. Certainly does. And yeah, Gary, I'll agree with you. Darren England had a really good game last night. I mean, I thought he got it spot on. He let the game flow, and I mentioned that numerous occasions last night, Gary. So yeah, 100%. Darren agrees with John. February is going to be a tough month, but I still think we'll be in the top four at the end of February, which would be great. And Mark, I agree with you as well, mate. He says, "Can I just say I'm glad that Burnham Botman have finally put to bed all of this persecution that left footers have had to put up with over the years. The two left footers can't play centre back together." Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely, because it's always staggered me that they say two left footers can't play together. Why? Two right footers play together at centre half. Time after loads of teams have got two right footers playing together at centre half, Steve. So why can't two left footers? And by the way, they don't look out of place. Botman and Byrne have gone together. And you know what? You know why I'm delighted? I'm delighted for Byrne because he's had a terrific season. He is essentially left-sided, and Botman threatened to take his place, didn't he? And now he's not taking his place. They can play together, and isn't that fabulous?
Certainly is. Newcastle United are back in Premier League action this Saturday. It is an earlier kick-off, 12:30. Once again, Newcastle live on television. The game will be shown on TNT Sports. Fabian Schär should be available after missing Wednesday's victory over Wolves due to illness. Harvey Barnes, Callum Wilson, Jamal Lascelles and Nick Pope will all remain on the sidelines. As for Bournemouth, Ariola's side have been affected by injuries to the forward duo, Evan Nielsen and Enes Unal, sidelining both for the immediate future. Bournemouth have recalled former Sheffield United striker Daniel Jefferson from his loan at Watford, while Max Aarons has moved on loan to Valencia. Ahead of their trip to Tyneside, Bournemouth drew 2-2 with Chelsea at Stamford Bridge in the Premier League on Tuesday, which extended their unbeaten run in League and Cup matches to 10 games. Justin Kluivert, son of former Newcastle United player Patrick Kluivert, has scored 7 Premier League goals this season, although 6 of them have come from the penalty spot. The referee, as Tom Dixon mentioned earlier, is Stuart Atwell, which is the second appointment of the season involving Newcastle fixture. The last one was the 4-0 win at Ipswich Town. And Peter Banks will be on VAR. John, Newcastle, dare I say it, win this game, go 10 out of 10. And previous games against Bournemouth, it's funny because a lot of us, when we were talking in the pub at the weekend, felt, oh God, Bournemouth, it's a difficult game, potential banana skin, they're playing well, we've got a dodgy record against them. But you know what? I'll just read you the last few games at home against Bournemouth. Last season, 2-2. Season before that, we won 1-0. That was in the League Cup. Season before that, 1-1 draw. Season before that, we won 2-1. Season before that, we won 2-1. Got to go back to 2017-18 when we lost against Bournemouth at home. That was a 1-0 defeat. So it's those two games. 2015-16, we lost 3-1 in the Premier League. But other than that, we haven't really played many games against them. FA Cup, 2-2 draw. 3-0 win over them in 89-90. That season Newcastle nearly got promoted and Mickey Quinn scored the goals. And then you go back to 72-73 when our friend Supermax scored. So, not many fixtures against Bournemouth. But, in recent years, haven't been a bogey team that I thought. Away from home, different matter. But at home, Newcastle have done well. So what do you reckon is going to happen this weekend, John?
Well, it's intriguing, Steve, because something has to give. Something literally has to give. Because we go into it with 9 wins on the bounce, and they go into it 10 unbeaten, which is their best run of the Premier League era. Now, both of those records can't be intact at the end of the 90 minutes, because if it's a draw, we've lost our winning run, and if we keep our winning run, they've lost our unbeaten run. So something's got to give in this. I've got nothing but admiration for Bournemouth, because, I mean, you can argue they've got no right to be in the Premier League, never mind anything else. They've got the capacity of their grounds, 11,000. I mean, we talk about having to raise money to be able to financial fair play, to be able to afford players. They have 11,000 gates. We have 52,000 gates. I mean, it is quite ridiculous. That is the difference between the two clubs. And yet somehow, under Eddie, who started the trend down at Bournemouth, under the current manager, with all the injuries, they're playing without a centre forward. They're playing with a false nine because they haven't got a centre forward because both their centre forwards are injured. But they're not losing in that we're within 2 minutes of beating Chelsea at Chelsea in midweek. They are a good side with a good manager. But we are a better side with a better manager. And therefore, I think it will be very, very difficult for us, much more than other games. But I believe we'll win. The team for me, unless there's unforeseen problems, like we found out that Shaw was ill when we knew nothing about it, and Eddie won't reveal it all, bless him, in the press conference tomorrow morning. He doesn't do that because he doesn't want the opposition to know what's happening. That's okay by me. He doesn't do that, but we'll be no further forward with the news on the potential team. I know that Shaw might be have recovered, and does he play instead of Botman, because Botman has had a lot of games in a short space of time. Botman looked magnificent alongside Byrne. I would, if at all possible, play exactly the same side. I think one of the successes recently for us is that Eddie Howe knows exactly what his side should be. We have often said, does Eddie know his best side? I tell you what, he knows his best side now, with Tonali where he is and Bruno where he is, and his centre halves and his wingers, Murphy on one side, Gordon on the other, Isak through the middle. He knows what his best side is. Unchanged team, they'll produce a challenge because you don't go 10 unbeaten with everybody injured. I mean, they had 6 academy players on the bench at Chelsea. That's the sort of injury list I have. And they have no centre forward because both their centre forwards are injured and will not play at Newcastle, but they still get results. It'll be fascinating. It'll be tough. In some ways, it'll be tougher than our 3 away games against the big beasts, where we won all 3. It'll be tough, but I'm taking us to win by a 1-goal margin, whether that's 1-0 or 2-1. But I'm taking us to keep going and win and plough on. And unless we get injuries to the key players, bearing in mind after this, we're away to Southampton and home to Fulham, both winnable. I'm not sure when we lose our next game, Steve. And isn't it brilliant to be able to say that?
It is. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I think Newcastle will score 2 goals again. I think Alexander Isak will get another goal as well. It'd be great to get Isak and Gordon hitting the tandem again at the weekend. But yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I think it'll be a tougher test. I think Semenyo will be the big issue for Newcastle. He's in great form. Scored another wonderful goal against Chelsea as well. So keep an eye on him. It's up to our full backs and centre halves to get a hold of him and find a plan to stop him. But no fear, Newcastle United to win at the weekend. I'm back tomorrow night with the Amigos, 5 o'clock till 7. Saturday will be 3's a crowd. Sunday, 5 o'clock, the professionals. So a full NUFC Matters weekend for everybody out there. Thanks to John. See you next week, mate.
Yeah, keep the faith, guys. Keep the faith.